Welcome back to this explainer by Forge College. If you were with us for the last lesson, you know we mapped out the milestones and adoption timeline of Bitcoin. But today, we're doing something a little more adventurous. We're popping the hood on the actual Bitcoin white paper. And don't worry, we're not going to just read it line by line like some dry textbook. Instead, we're learning how to totally tear it down, analyze its moving parts, and figure out exactly what makes it tick.
We're treating this white paper like an engineering blueprint. Here's our game plan. First, going from passive to active reading. Second, the core reading triplet. Third, mapping assumptions. Fourth, a practical worked example. Fifth, score, prioritize, and plan. And finally, your next study steps.
Section 1. From passive to active. Okay, let's be totally honest for a second. Reading a dense, technical white paper passively, it's basically like mindlessly scrolling through the terms and conditions on a software update and just hitting accept. You're taking the author's word as absolute fact, and honestly, that's a massive trap in the Web3 space. To really understand these systems, we have to flip the script to active interrogation. We stop nodding along and instead, we extract their concrete engineering claims and put them to the test. We have to constantly ask, wait, does this actually work in the real world?
Section 2, the core reading triplet. So how do we actively interrogate a text? Well, you need a mental framework, kind of like a built-in nonsense detector. We call this the core reading triplet, and it's just 3 questions. Step 1, what is actually being claimed? Strip away all the fancy jargon and find the core promise. Step 2, what is assumed? This is huge because assumptions are usually these invisible background conditions the author just takes for granted. And step 3, what would falsify it? What observable real-world event would make this entire system crash and burn? Run every critical paragraph through this filter and it literally changes how you see the text.
Let's look at this triplet in action. Say a white paper claims its proof of work completely prevents double spending. Awesome claim, right? But what's the hidden assumption? Almost always, it's assuming that network latency, how fast computers talk to each other, is bounded and super fast. It's like assuming you have 4 bars of Wi-Fi before sending a massive video file. But what if that assumption fails? For our falsification test, we ask, what happens if latency spikes? What if there's a huge internet outage right as a coordinated 51% attack happens? If latency breaks, does the double spend protection break too? That's how you really stress test a claim.
Section 3, mapping assumptions to consequences.
Once you've dug up those hidden assumptions, you need to visualize their domino effect. Think of it like setting your morning alarm. The hidden assumption is that your phone battery won't die. The mechanism is the alarm sounding, and the consequence is you get to work on time. If your battery dies, the chain collapses, and well, you're late. White papers work exactly the same way. If an author assumes miners will always chase financial block rewards, that ripples through the game theory, creating the consequence that chain reorgs are rare. But what if miners suddenly stop caring about money and just want to sabotage the network? That foundational assumption shatters, and the whole security consequence falls entirely apart.
Section 4, a practical worked example.
Let's roll up our sleeves and apply this to one of Satoshi Nakamoto's most famous sentences. The quote is, "The longest chain not only serves as proof of the sequence of events witnessed, but is also guaranteed to be the record of the majority of CPU power." If you're reading passively, that sounds ironclad, right? Proof. Guaranteed. But as critical readers, our alarm bells should be ringing. Anytime a distributed network claims absolute mathematical certainty, it's begging to be interrogated. Sure, it relies on explicit rules, but it's balancing on some major hidden premises. So, let's play detective. We know the surface-level rule. Nodes adopt the longest valid chain. But what exactly is Satoshi assuming beneath the surface for this guarantee to hold up in the messy, real world?
Here are the invisible pillars. First, a behavioral assumption. Miners maximize their expected reward. They're rational and they want to make money. Second, a physical networking assumption. Block propagation delays don't persistently favor attackers. Basically, it assumes a level playing field on the internet. And third, an economic assumption. Mining power distribution remains relatively stable. But what if an eccentric billionaire buys up 60% of all miners just to watch the network burn? The stable distribution fails, the rational actor theory fails, and Satoshi's guarantee completely crumbles. Exposing these is how you find the actual system risk. Section 5, score, prioritize, and plan.
Okay, so once you've tagged all these fascinating, sometimes terrifying assumptions, you need a workflow,
Otherwise, you're going to fall down a massive Reddit rabbit hole and spend 3 hours reading about undersea fiber optic cables. Here's your 3-step lifeline. 1. Read and tag your text using the triplet. 2. Score the uncertainty. How much do we actually know about this? And 3. Prioritize your follow-ups by multiplying that uncertainty by the learning payoff. You're mapping out what you don't know and ruthlessly focusing on what actually matters for the system's survival.
Is basically a simple matrix. You absolutely want to focus on high uncertainty, high impact items. Things like real-world blog propagation times. How do messy internet providers actually affect node communication? Super uncertain, super impactful. On the flip side, don't waste your weekend reproving the cryptography of SHA-256. The NSA designed it, the math works. The uncertainty there is practically zero. Accept the established cryptography and put your energy into where the system collides with messy humans and real-world infrastructure.
Section 6. Your next study steps. As we get ready for the upcoming module on network and transactions, it's time to turn this theory into action. I challenge you to pick 2 prioritized investigations. First, grab a formal reading task. Maybe dive into the academic literature on selfish mining to see how researchers have tested Satoshi's game theory. Second, pick an empirical observation. Go grab some real block propagation data from a public block explorer and see the latency for yourself. That's the leap from passive reader to active engineer.
I'll leave you with a final thought to chew on. Which hidden assumption in the Bitcoin network produces the greatest uncertainty under realistic conditions? Is it the humans? The hardware? The internet itself? As you ponder that and plan your next experiment, be sure to head over to forge.college to keep exploring these Web3 fundamentals with us. Thanks for joining this explainer, and we'll see you in the next one.